Rest in peace, Daryl Sheets. Also, I know Daryl would want something positive out of this, so he had a guy like really tormenting him lately on cyberbullying. Guys, just because you watch us on television doesn't mean you know us.
Winning a locker is easy, but surviving the fame is a different story. We love the thrill of the hunt, but for some legends, the final gavel came far too soon. From tragic passings to harrowing legal battles and near-fatal brushes with death, the show's legacy is now stained by tragedy. Who is actually left standing among the Storage Wars stars, starting up with the show's elder statesmen, whose lives just shut out unexpectedly? Who could they be, and what exactly happened? Remembering Mo Prygoff and Gunter Nezoda, in the world of high-stakes bidding, everyone is used to things coming and going, but nothing prepared the fans for the loss of the show's elder statesmen, Morris Mo Prygoff and Gunter Nezoda. Mo Prygoff was a constant presence who brought a sense of wisdom to the chaotic parking lots. When he passed away in March 2021 at the age of 78, it felt like the heart of the show had skipped a beat. What many people did not realize was that Mo had been fighting a serious illness for 6 years while the cameras were rolling. He chose to keep his struggle a secret because he wanted to be remembered for his sharp eye and his kindness rather than his health problems. It means that his private battle showed just how much he loved the game. Not long after, another heavy blow hit the community. Gunter Nezoda, a man whose personality was as big as his fines, passed away in March 2023. He was 67 years old and had been battling lung cancer. Gunter was a staple of the old guard, representing a generation of pickers who valued history and hard work. His absence left a massive hole in the production. You might wonder why these stars worked so hard to hide their declining health from the public. For these men, the show was more than a job. It was a place where they could feel alive and useful. They did not want to be treated with pity. They wanted to be treated as competitors until the very last locker was sold. The impact of these losses was incredibly visible during the filming sessions for the 2025 and 2026 seasons. Without their experience and their stories, the auctions feel a little more modern and perhaps a little less grounded. It is a shift that longtime viewers can definitely feel when they tune in today. Although these legends are gone, the show's most controversial disruptor, whose reputation made him a household name, encountered a terrifying health scare that turned his life upside down in the blink of an eye. The high price of the Yap, Dave Hester's health crisis. Dave Hester was definitely the man everyone loved to hate. When he yelled that signature catchphrase, Yap, it was not just a sound. It was a direct challenge to everyone else in the parking lot. However, playing the villain for years takes a toll that the cameras never captured. While viewers saw a confident mogul, the reality was a man facing immense pressure and social isolation. Being the show's primary antagonist meant he did not have many friends on set, and that heavy loneliness followed him home. Suddenly, a massive legal battle evolved that changed everything. In a move that shocked the reality television world, Dave sued the production company for $750,000 in 2012. He claimed the show was rigged and that interesting items were planted in the lockers to create fake drama. This lawsuit did not just cost him a lot of money. It effectively burned every bridge he had in the entertainment industry. During the court case, a judge initially dismissed some claims, citing the show as expressive free speech. One might think that his career would be completely over because he dared to pull back the curtain on the magic. But surprisingly, Dave Hester eventually settled with the network and made a surprise return to the show in Season 5. However, the biggest fight was not in a courtroom, though. It was somewhere else. In late 2018, the loud world of Dave Hester came to a sudden halt because he suffered a massive hemorrhagic stroke while he was asleep. This was not a minor scare. It was a life-threatening event that nearly took him away forever. The man who made a lucrative living by being the loudest person in the room was suddenly forced into a period of total, terrifying silence. He spent months in a specialized facility, essentially learning how to be a human again. He had to learn how to walk, how to eat, and how to speak. Fast forward to 2026, and fortunately, Dave is a very different person than the one we remember from the early seasons. While he did suffer a life-threatening stroke, Dave has since successfully returned to the show and continues to operate his auction business. He also even celebrated being a grandfather in 2025. Despite the ups and downs, he leaned back into his bad guy role upon his return, showing that the famous shout isn't necessarily quieter. It is back to business as usual. Even though Dave Hester survived his health scare for another fan favorite, the trouble was not in his veins. It was in a court of law, leading to a downward spiral that no one saw coming when the cameras were first rolling. Behind closed doors, Jarrod Schulz's downward spiral. As we all know, for over a decade, Jarrod Schulz and Brandi Pasante were the golden couple of reality television. They were known as the Young Guns, the relatable duo who built a thrift store empire while raising their kids. Fans loved their playful banter alongside their chemistry. Despite being marketed as a married couple and starring in the spin-off Brandi and Jarrod, Married to the Job, the two never legally married. However, that polished image has been shattered beyond repair. The reality of their situation is far darker than the bickering we saw on our television screens. Contrary to their on-screen portrayal, the couple actually split in 2018. This remained a secret until the season 13 premiere in early 2021, when Brandi officially confirmed they were no longer together. Fans were shocked that they had actually been separated for years without anyone knowing. Why they actually split up in 2018 remains unclear. However, a breaking point arrived in May 2021 during a tense encounter at an Orange County bar. Reports indicated that Jarrod and Brandi got into a heated argument that turned physical, and Jarrod was accused of pushing Brandi twice. This led to a misdemeanor domestic violence charge that changed his life forever. While he denied the allegations, the damage to his reputation was immediate. Following the incident, Jarrod entered a period of legal limbo that has essentially lasted until today. The court process was slow, and the constant headlines made him a liability for the network. Because of this, he was effectively blacklisted from the Storage Wars franchise. Perhaps producers did not want the brand associated with domestic violence allegations, who knows, but they quietly moved on without him. This was a massive blow to his careers because his entire identity was basically tied to the show. On top of that, rumors about his personal life began to swirl after the split. There were reports about his struggles with sobriety and the difficulty of navigating a very public breakup. As of 2026, Jarrod has completely vanished from the public eye. While other cast members are engaging with fans and discussing the 2025 and 2026 reunion projects, Jarrod is nowhere to be found. He has chosen a life of total privacy, perhaps out of necessity or a desire to stay away from the cameras that once documented his every move. The impact on the Storage Wars brand was significant. Executives had to pivot their entire marketing strategy. They could no longer sell the show as a family-friendly competition between couples. Instead, they shifted the focus toward individual bidders and the technical side of the auctions. This was a direct response to the legal drama that surrounded Jarrod. However, while Jarrod faced the consequences of his actions, His former partner, Brandi, was fighting a battle against an invisible enemy, the dark side of fame. The price of fame. Brandi Pasante's living nightmare. For a long time, viewers saw Brandi Pasante as the sharp, no-nonsense bidder who could hold her own in a male-dominated industry. While the show focused on the treasures hidden behind rusted rolling doors, Brandi was dealing with a much more difficult reality off-camera. She faced a level of personal invasion that most people could never imagine. In 2013, early in her career, she became the target of a cruel internet hoax when Hunter Moore, an explicit content owner, tried to damage her reputation with fabricated explicit content. Instead of backing down or letting the noise define her, Brandi sued Moore for $2.5 million and stood her ground in a courtroom. Fortunately, she won a default judgment proving the video was fake. However, the judge awarded her only $750 in statutory damages, citing a lack of evidence for the $2.5 million in actual damages she requested. As the years progressed, her life underwent a massive transformation. By 2018, she began the difficult process of navigating life as a single mother. She chose to keep this transition private for a long time, showing up to work and filming episodes while managing the quiet reality of a changing home life. This period required an immense amount of strength as she balanced the demands of a massive television franchise with the needs of her 2 children. She focused her energy on creating a stable and positive environment for her family, far away from the flashing lights and tabloid headlines that often follow reality stars. By the time 2026 arrived, Brandi had fully stepped into her own light. She moved away from the shadow of her past partnerships to become a prominent voice for others in the entertainment industry. She now uses her platform to speak openly about the importance of mental health and the dangers of online harassment. Her journey has inspired many women who find themselves starting over or fighting for respect in tough industries. Though Brandi continues to appear on the show, she does so with a renewed sense of purpose that goes beyond finding valuable antiques. Outside of the show, she has successfully branched out into lifestyle and fashion ventures. These projects allow her to express a creative side that the auction world rarely captured. She has built a career that is entirely her own, grounded in the resilience she discovered during her toughest years. Brandi has proven that a person can face a public storm and come out the other side stronger, more independent, and ready for whatever the next chapter holds. Brandi's struggle was about survival, but for the show's legendary auctioneers, survival meant dodging a literal bullet. The Dotson family curse, near death and gunfire. Dan and Laura Dotson are the fast-talking heart of the series, yet their family has walked through a fire that most people could never imagine. It started in 2014 when Dan suddenly collapsed at home. He was suffering from a double aneurysm and a subarachnoid hemorrhage. This is a terrifying medical emergency where blood leaks into the space around the brain, and the survival rate is incredibly low. It was a genuine miracle that Dan not only survived, but made a full recovery to return to the auction block. The family barely had time to breathe before another nightmare struck in 2020. Their son, Garrett, was in Lake Havasu, Arizona, when he was fired in his abdomen during an unprovoked encounter. This was a random act of violence that left the entire family reeling. Garrett had to undergo major surgery to repair the damage to his internal organs. While the physical wounds healed over time, the psychological impact on the Dotson family was deep. They had to navigate the trauma of nearly losing a child right after Dan's own brush with death. It was a period of intense reflection and healing for everyone involved. As of 2026, Dan and Laura have managed to turn these tragedies into a story of resilience. They are still the most recognizable auctioneers in the country, Yet they operate differently today. They have significantly tightened their security protocols at public events to ensure history does not repeat itself. You will notice a much more controlled environment when they are on camera or at live auctions. They have also used their platform to talk about health awareness and personal safety, showing a vulnerable side to their millions of fans that was never there before. When we look deeper, there is a fascinating insight into how these events affected their business. Many expected the family to step away from the spotlight to find peace. Instead, these near-death experiences solidified their business empire. It brought Dan, Laura, and Garrett closer than ever, creating a unified front that made their brand even more successful. They realized that while they are famous for finding treasures, including the legendary locker that contained over $7 million in cash, that money pales in comparison to their lives. They have found the ultimate treasure in the survival of their family. I'm sure you must be wondering what the $1 million cash was all about. You see, in 2018, Dan auctioned a unit for $500 that contained a safe with $7.5 million in cash. After the original owner's attorney reached out, the buyer agreed to return $6.3 million in exchange for a $1.2 million reward. But then, while this specific auction was not filmed for the show, it remains the largest find ever associated with their company, American Auctioneers. The Dotsons survived by the skin of their teeth, but the show's most eccentric legend found himself in a high-speed nightmare. The Collector's Crash, Barry Weiss, and the Road to Recovery. Barry Weiss was always the guy who made being eccentric look easy. He would roll up to a dusty storage facility in a custom car worth more than the building itself, wearing a velvet suit and skeleton gloves just to dig through someone's old junk. For years, fans of Storage Wars loved him because he never seemed to care about the money. He was there for the cool factor, the rare find, and the thrill of the auction. But that fast-paced life hit a wall in April 2019 when a Wednesday afternoon ride in Los Angeles turned into a fight for survival. While he was riding his motorcycle in Los Angeles with his friend Jamie, a car pulled out of a parking space without seeing them. Barry slammed into the vehicle, and the impact was devastating. This was not just a minor accident. He suffered severe injuries to his chest and back, along with a broken femur. For someone who prided himself on being active and adventurous, the recovery process was a massive wake-up call. Barry had to undergo multiple surgeries to put his body back together, spending quite a bit of time in the intensive care unit. As of 2026, Barry has found a new rhythm. He is still the king of collectibles, but he has traded the high-speed chaos for a more careful way of living. He made a triumphant return to the show, arriving in a flamethrower-equipped Lincoln Zephyr to show the world he was still here. Even though he might not be the first one to jump into a crowded locker anymore, his eye for treasures is as sharp as ever. He spends more of his time now at car shows, surrounded by the vintage steel he loves, and focusing on staying healthy. Surprisingly, he still owns his famous 1932 Ford and a garage full of history, but he treats life with a newfound respect. While the auction world keeps spinning, Barry is happy to set his own pace, proving that you can still be the coolest guy in the room even if you are moving a little slower. Barry Weiss must have dodged the final gavel, but another star's life nearly ended on a lonely highway, far from the auction crowds. The long haul. Brandi Sheets' near-fatal accident. Brandi Sheets spent nearly a decade learning the ropes of the storage business at his father's side. However, the bright lights of reality television dimmed for him in 2017 when he was unexpectedly cut from the series. While the official reason was a lack of budget, The loss of his career on a hit show was a massive financial blow. But Brandon did not let it stop him. He made a major life pivot to support his family by moving into driving for UPS. It was a humble, hard-working path that took him far away from the cameras and the fame he once knew. His new life took a terrifying turn in June 2024. While Brandon was parked and resting in the sleeper berth of his UPS semi-truck, a vehicle lost control and smashed into his rig. The crash was violent and could have easily been the end of his story, because when you look at the photos of the mangled metal, it seems impossible that anyone survived. Fortunately, Brandon managed to climb out of that twisted cab by pure luck and a strong will to live. This one night changed everything for him. He realized that the highway could be as dangerous as any high-stakes business deal, and he decided to do something about it. You see, living in the shadow of his father, Daryl Sheets, was never easy, because as a legend in the auction world, Daryl has also lived under the shadow of the Widowmaker. Widowmaker is the name given to the type of heart attack that can sometimes take your life in the blink of an eye. And seeing his father struggle with severe health issues made Brandon even more aware of how fragile life is. The trauma of the 2024 accident only deepened that feeling. It was a wake-up call that echoed the medical scares his father had already faced. They both know what it is like to be on the brink of losing everything in an instant. As of 2026, Brandon has successfully reinvented his career once again. He became involved in a real estate career, and his status shows a man who has finally found a purpose that belongs entirely to him. He is no longer defined by his father's fame or the lockers they used to buy. His relationship with Daryl has also reached a new level of maturity. They have moved past the public drama of the show to focus on their careers and families. While Brandon was lucky to escape the wreckage, his father, Daryl, had to face a silent killer from within. The heart of the gambler, Daryl Sheets, Widowmaker. Daryl Sheets lived his life exactly like he bid on lockers: fast, loud, and full of risk. He was the man who would bet it all on a hunch. However, in 2019, his body sent him a bill that he was not prepared to pay. You see, Daryl suffered back-to-back heart attacks that brought his world to a screeching halt. During his emergency treatment, doctors discovered a 100% blockage in his main artery. In the medical community, this specific condition is known as the Widowmaker. It earned that name because the survival rate is incredibly low. It was a genuine miracle that he made it off the operating table alive. By 2026, the person fans see today is a far cry from the junk food-loving gambler of the early seasons. Daryl made a massive commitment to his health after looking death in the eye. He lost a significant amount of weight and completely overhauled his lifestyle. This version of Daryl is focused on longevity and clean living. He realized that no amount of profit from a storage unit was worth losing his life over. This dramatic shift has sparked plenty of rumors about his future in the industry. As of 2026, Daryl is living a semi-retired life in Lake Havasu. Rather than just fully retiring, he opened a new business called Show Me Your Junk in 2023. He is very much active in the local community, frequently hosting estate sales and advertisements on Havasu radio. While he was absent from some recent seasons, fans have spotted him filming for the franchise as recently as late 2025, suggesting he still makes appearances rather than being fully retired. The financial reality of his situation is something many fans do not consider. Between the overwhelming medical bills and the cost of specialized care, the fortune he built over decades took a noticeable hit. While rumors swirled that he was selling off a secret art collection to pay medical bills, Daryl has actually just been smart with his money. He turned his legendary eye for art into a safety net that allows him to live on his own terms. He also has proven that even a career gambler knows when it's time to cash in the chips and enjoy the quiet life, even though Daryl changed his life to save it. Mark Balelo's story is the tragic hint of what happens when pressure becomes too much. The ultimate tragedy: the life and loss of Mark Balelo. Mark Balelo was a man who lived life in the fast lane. On Storage Wars, he was known as Rico Suave. He would show up with a man purse full of cash and a level of confidence that rubbed the regulars the wrong way. He was not afraid to spend big because he believed in his own eye for luxury. His style was incredibly flamboyant, featuring custom cars and expensive jewelry. For a while, he was the perfect antagonist for the show. However, behind the flashy suits and the bright smile, a storm was brewing. The pressure of being in the spotlight combined with personal struggles started to take a heavy toll on him. In early 2013, the high-stakes life Mark lived caught up with him in a very public way. He was arrested for substance-related offenses involving methamphetamine. This legal trap was a massive blow to his reputation and his mental state. For someone who valued his image as a successful businessman, the shame of the arrest was overwhelming. Only 2 days after his release from jail, the situation took a dark turn. Mark was found dead in his car at his business location. He had taken his own life through carbon monoxide poisoning. It was a shocking end for a man who seemed so full of life on our television screens. This tragedy served as a massive wake-up call for the reality television industry. People began to realize that the fame and pressure of these shows could have devastating effects on the people involved. Producers started to rethink how they provided support for their stars. Mark's death opened up a serious conversation about mental health care that continues into 2026. Fans still remember him as a legendary showman who brought a unique energy to the auctions. Tribute episodes often highlight his best moments, reminding us of the human being behind the Rico Suave persona. It remains one of the most emotional chapters in the history of the franchise. After his passing, his business, Balelo's custom cars and jewelry, could not survive without his personality and vision. The shop eventually closed its doors, leaving behind a legacy of what might have been. It was a sad end for a place that was once a symbol of his success. Today, his story is taught as a lesson about the hidden costs of fame. We see his influence in the way modern reality stars handle their public and private lives. Mark's story is a dark chapter in the show's history, leading us to ask a chilling question. Is there a Storage Wars curse? The 2026 verdicts. When you look at the numbers, it is hard not to wonder. From brain aneurysms and heart attacks to shootings and tragic self-harm, the cast has faced a statistical mountain of misfortune. Some fans believe that the high pressure of the auction world, combined with the sudden spotlight of fame, created a perfect storm of bad luck. Whether you believe in a supernatural curse or simply a string of terrible coincidences, the reality is that the people behind the lockers paid a much higher price than we ever saw on our screens. As we move through 2026, the remaining cast members have found ways to keep the legacy alive. Ivy Calvin, the king of Palmdale, continues to run his thrift store with the same no-nonsense attitude that made him a favorite. He has stayed away from the drama, focusing instead on his family and his community. Renee Nazoda is also still a major player, often sharing updates about his finds and his life on social media. These veterans have learned how to balance the demands of the show with their personal well-being. They have seen friends come and go, and they carry those memories with them every time they step onto a new lot. The production of the show has also undergone a major transformation by 2026. The network realized that the health and happiness of their stars had to come first. Today, there are much better support systems in place, including mental health resources and stricter safety protocols during filming. The days of pushing cast members to their absolute limits for a dramatic scene are largely over. This shift was a direct result of the tragedies we have discussed. The industry learned the hard way that protecting the people is more important than protecting the ratings. Despite all the heartaches, the world is still drawn to the lockers. There is something about the hunt for hidden treasure that speaks to the gambler in all of us. We love the idea that a dusty unit could hold a life-changing fortune. However, as we close the vault on this story, we realize the real cost of those treasures. The lockers may hold treasures, but for the stars of storage wars, the real cost was often their health and happiness. As we look ahead to 2026, we remember the legends we lost and celebrate the survivors who kept bidding against the odds. But then, who was your favorite bidder from the series? We want to hear your favorite memories of the legends like Mo, Gunter, and Mark in the comments below. Do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more celebrity exposés that uncover the truth behind your favorite shows. For more content like this, tap on the next video on your screen.